Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good night, good morning, wherever you are, wherever you might be. Welcome to this channel, Cry in the Wilderness. My name is Maxie. Once again, I'm here with you to continue our discussion, our conversation, our study in the question, what is man? We know, for those of you who have listened to part 1 and part 2, we started in Psalms chapter 8, the book of Psalms chapter 8. All right, again, just to go in and rehash just smidgets here and there, just to bring you in the story, bring you in the teaching, bring you in the narrative. We talked about the importance of the question, right? We talked about where did the question come from? Where was David in terms of the question? Why did he ask that question? You know, what was his frame of mind? What was his emotional state? Right? And we read in the opening line to that chapter of Psalms that this was a psalm written, or song written, or a poem written for the chief musician, right, on a musical instrument of Gath. Whoever Gath was, we don't want to go into that, but I would take that narrative and say he was composing a song. He was on an instrument, a guitar, piano, keyboards. Obviously, we didn't have. Well, we don't know if we didn't have keyboards and so on at that time. Maybe we had some kind of a something that looked like a keyboard. Obviously, in this modern technological world, keyboards they have an array of ways they look, but they all look basically the same, right? In terms of it's black and white keys, and it's you play it and so on. They have big ones, they have small ones, you know. But we know it's an instrument, and we know he was, I guess, composing that song, right? And we talked about the state of being of musicians, of producers, of people who are involved in music, who are involved in composing music, who are involved in that kind of thing. They are very, they could go places in their mind, in their spirit, right? They could see things, they could envision things, they tap into reality in terms of things that they have experienced, things that they have seen, things that they have heard, right? And so most musicians combine lots of those things, stories they've heard, and so on and so on. And so music comes from various places in terms of the lyrical quality and quantity of the music, in terms of the depth and the heart and the soul of the music, if I could use that word. It comes from within that person doing the composition, right? That person who sits and writes, or is on the keyboard playing, or is on instrument playing, as in this case David. And he goes on and he starts off with extolling God and exalting God, as if God needs exalting, right? He is exalted. He is the exalted one. He is high and lifted up. You know, there's no one higher. There's no one close to him in terms of that exaltation, right? But David goes on nonetheless and extols him for who he is. Oh God, how excellent is your name in all the earth, you know, and goes on talking about the wondrous things that El has created, you know, the moon and the stars and so on and so on. And then he gets to verse 8 and he asks the question, what is man that you think of him? is the Hebrew names version way of writing that verse. I think the King James version is that you Elohim are mindful of him, and I take that word mindful and kind of play with it and say that your mind is full of him, which I think sounds better. It sits better to me. I don't know, but God's his mind, his that, and that you care for him. It goes on to say in verse 8, and we have to understand this is the Almighty God. This is the God who needs nothing, who has everything, who is all powerful, who is everywhere, omnipotent, is omnipotent, is all powerful, is omniscient, is all knowing, and he's omnipresent. He's everywhere present, and so to think of that God as someone who's thinking about something else in a concerning way, you could say. The other part of the verse says that you care for him. When you care for somebody, you don't just think about them in a joyful, joyous way all the time. Sometimes you look at them and you do have concerns about them. You wonder about them, what they're doing, what they might be doing, why are they doing what they're doing, how, and so as a person, if you care about someone, that's you go through those things. And so David is asking God, what is man? Right? And we went into the question, and we still digging into the question, right? Again, well, let me reiterate, when we read Psalms 8, we recognize that David this is not something that he's making up on his own, right? He's getting these inspiration. He's getting that inspiration from something that he's acquainted with, and we pointed out that he's well acquainted with the Genesis narrative, with how the world came to be, and so we went into the Genesis narrative, and we stopped there. We're still there because for me it's really, 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 really important that if you really want to understand something, then you go to the beginning, you go to the foundation, you go to the essence of the thing, and you stay there, and you dig and you dig and you inquire and you ask and you investigate and you search out and you seek out and you find out, and what that does is it unearths a lot of awesome things. And we went into some of those things, the weakness of man. And we talked about various places in the narrative, in the biblical narrative, that calls man, that talks about man from this weak perspective, the frailty of man. He's like grass. He's here today and gone tomorrow. He withers and dries up. He's like dry grass and so on. And so we understand that, right? And if you yourself read parts of the biblical narrative as a whole, you see instances where, that we are really weak and frail. And we react a lot of times because of the weakness and the frailty. And for us, it seemed to be strength, and in a lot of cases, it's weakness. And we react because we are insecure, or we are hurt, or we feel bad, or whatever the reason. Because a lot of times that's how we react, and a lot of times we ourselves interpret the reaction as some kind of strength, But when we understand the narrative, when we read the narrative, the Gospels, when we read the teachings of Yeshua, we find out that, wait a second, there's something going on here that points to our desire, our need for this person who created us. We have a need. We must be attached There must be affinity to the person who created us. If there is no affinity for the person who created us, then we operate in complete weakness. Right? And from the human perspective, it looks like strength. When you see somebody trying to exert some authority, when you look at that, you might, oh, that person is strong. But it might be a reflection of the weakness of that person, right? And so when we read the biblical narrative from Genesis to Revelation, we see that we as human beings, we as mankind, we need to have that attachment. We need to have that affinity to Him. If we don't have that attachment, if we are not attached, we find ourselves going off the deep end. We find ourselves in a lot of trouble. We will get into trouble, not just with each other, but with Him. And most important thing is that connection, right? You don't want to be in trouble with Him. You see what I'm saying? Even Yeshua says, don't fear what another human being can do to you, but fear Him who has the power to cast your body and your soul into the bad place, into the depths, into the pits, right? Cast your body and soul away from Him. And that's who you ought to have total fear of, maximum fear of. And I'm not talking about just the reverential fear, just the respectful fear. I'm talking about fear from top to bottom. I'm talking about reverential fear and dread and being literally afraid. Because when you understand that you need all of those things to walk in that respect, to walk in that reverence, then that puts you in a good place, right? When you think all you gotta do is respect them, well, you don't respect people if you don't see them, right? That's why kids act like that when the parents are not around. I remember I was a kid, right? When parents and adults not around, they act one way, and as soon as a parent or an adult come in the picture, everything changes, right? That's not what you want, right? That's when you only adopt that one half of the fear, that half of that word fear, that reverential, that respect. Again, if you don't see them, there's no respect. If you don't feel them, if the person is not there, there's no need for you to be in dread of them from the human perspective. But if you understand fear and dread in the totality of what they represent, then you would understand that even though you may not see God physically, if you hold fast to the totality of the word, then you would walk in that fear and that dread and that reverence and that respect every day. Right? And that's my little rant. But we got to get back to the teaching. We got to get back to the narrative. We got to get back to the place of digging further into the narrative of what is man. We talked about how he was created. Different from animals. I'm not an animal. You're not an animal. And I challenge you, I charge you, if you hear somebody trying to lump us all together with the animal kingdom, no, we are not. I'm not an animal. We were created differently. Read the narrative in Genesis chapter 1. God spoke to the earth and told the earth to bring forth living creatures. And told the living creatures to be blessed. He blesses everything he creates. He's a good Father, good God. He's a good El, a good Yah. So he says, but guess what? Multiply after your kind. Multiply after. He told them to multiply after their kind. Right? No hands involved. But it's the same life force that exists in the dirt. That's what we made of. The difference is he spoke to the dirt and the dirt spat out its creatures. When it comes to me and you, he fashioned us with his hands. Genesis 2:7. God took the dust of the earth and fashioned the form of a man, and then breathed into man the breath of life. And the man became a living being or living soul. This is completely different to the other narrative with the animals and the birds and the fishes and so on. It's completely different. So why am I going to go along with you when you say, if you think, no, I'm not an animal. Not an animal. Even when you go in the narrative with the fall in Genesis chapter 3, and the beginning, it defines who is who. Defines the serpent as the most subtle of the beasts of the field. Doesn't define the woman. But yet in Genesis 1, he gave the woman and the man dominion over the beasts of the field. So if we have dominion over them, how come they can't be smarter than us? Because then they would be training us. We wouldn't be training them. Ooh. See? So don't get it discombobulated. Don't get it confused. We go in with the narrative. We stay in with the narrative. That's how we were created. And there's a couple things I want to point out today to get us to understand even further how important this relationship to God, how important it is for us. For us. See, when man fell, when the woman ate of the fruit and caused man to fall, God didn't say, all right, kick them out of the garden and just go die and I will just create another man. No. Just start from scratch. No. He didn't do that. He continued with the same plan. The same plan he had from the beginning. He continued with that plan because he knows what's best. So even in her fallen state and his fallen state, God didn't abandon them. No, they would have to learn some things as we have to. They would have to do some things differently as we have to. But the plan is the same. His plan to redeem us, his plan to bring us back to that place that he had us from in this that we're getting ready to read here. In the beginning. That's the plan. He's doing everything to bring people back to that place. And it's up to you. Okay? You have a part to play. I have a part to play. What's my part? Is to listen to his antiviral message, right? If you listen to part 1 or part 2, you will hear that word, that virus. You know, we were overtaken by a virus because God had imprinted himself on our hard drive. We are his hard drive, in other words, right? We, the man and the woman, are Jehovah's hard drive in his system. We are his hard drive. We have the memory. We have, all the stuff. Right? And the wisdom, in his wisdom, he didn't give man all and give the woman none. Right? He said, okay, I'm going to impute the man with the seed, with the memory, with everything that everything that humanity needs, everything that every individual needs to understand things, to get to find things out, to get to know things, to be able to do things. He imputed that, he fused that as the part of his hard drive on the male side. Let me say it like that. The male side. And then on the female side, he gave her the ability to cooperate and collaborate and come together with the male. And the male deposits his seed into her, right? And she has her part to play, to nurture, to after that seed collaborates with its partner in her, the egg. She has now full responsibility of carrying that seed for 9 months, nurturing it, eating right, resting well, doing all these things. And while the husband continues to work, continues to take care of her on that side and all other sides also. Okay, so and I'm talking like that just in case we have little kids listening, because I could be very forward. I believe you me. I could dive on any subject as far as humans are concerned. I'm not afraid, but I want people to understand. I want kids to hear. So yes, that's important. So let's go to the narrative. We go to the narrative. Genesis 1:27. God created man, which is the human being, right? In this context, he's talking about the human being, the man, not the male man. He's talking about the human being. God created the human being in his image, in his own image, in God's own image. And to make sure that I don't misunderstand and think that God created me in my image, he says it another way. In Elohim's image, Elohim created him, Elohim, male and female. Elohim created them. This is how you could read that. Right? So Elohim created the human being in his own image. In Elohim's image, Elohim created Elohim male and female. Elohim created them. This is how you could read that. Okay? So, and we talked about the male as far as the seed part of creation, right? Just like the plants, just like herbs, herb-bearing seeds and fruit-bearing trees that carry fruit with seeds, and it's part of the theme. Reproduction takes place based on seeds. So God is getting ready to set a plan in motion to reproduce himself in the same pattern. Create two things: the seed and an environment for the seed to prosper in. There you have it, male and female. So this is not a man's world. Much respect, James Brown. I hear you. I like your song. I sing it sometimes. It's a man's world. No, it's not really a man's world. This is Elohim's world. It's God's world. It's his world. Right? And we have responsibilities. Both the man and the woman. And they are not slighted as far as God is concerned. God doesn't slight the woman for the man, neither does he slight the man for the woman. No, he ain't looking at me like, oh, your responsibility is less than his. No. Their responsibility is equal in terms of what they're supposed to do. Okay? Simple. Yeah, we messed it up. We did. Man, the males Yeah, a lot of us, we did bad stuff, wrong stuff. A lot of it because we didn't understand. I know me. There's a lot of stuff I didn't understand. You know what I'm saying? I'm only understanding now as I read the narrative, not like right now, but in terms of my lifetime, in terms of my human life. It's when I got with him, when he got with me, when we collaborated, more him than me, right? But when I started to pay attention, I begin to realize, that was my reaction to stuff I did and stuff that I do every so often. Yeah. John says, if you say you're not, if you say you are not sin, you lie. And the truth is not in you. So even though we have this relationship with God, we're still sinners. And it's not going to end until we are reborn in the reality of who he is. Right? It's not happening in this lifetime. It's not happening now. It's not going to happen in this world. Right? But again, that's another topic for another teaching. So I'm going to end it there and go back to the narrative. So he created man in his image. Right? And when you talk about what is man, and well, okay, I'm born, I'm a male, so what? What am I? What am I to do with myself? Well, let's read. God blessed them. God said to them, be fruitful and multiply. Genesis 1:28. Fill the earth. Okay. Now there are different versions of this verse will say replenish the earth. Well, it's not. That's not the word. If you look at the Hebrew word doesn't say replenish. The Hebrew word says fill. Because if you say replenish, you give the connotation that there were people here before, and all you're doing is refilling it. That's not what the narrative is. That's not what the Hebrew narrative says. Fill the earth. That means you're the first two. So this is your responsibility. One of them. Fill the earth with, not more like you. We went through that part 2. Go check it out. Right? It was supposed to be more like him. Right? But it was us. We got issues, people. I'm telling you, we got issues. Fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the sky, over every living thing that moves on the earth. So, yeah, you have a responsibility. Fill the earth, have dominion. All right? Have dominion over the earth, though, over the living things that moves on the earth, not over the people that you're going to help create. Because remember, in your helping of creation, you're not really creating, you're creating people, but you're supposed to create righteous people, a people who looks like their creator, the original one, the one who created you. And again, we roll that back further and further and further. We end up here where he has to procreate somebody that not looks, persona, right? We're talking about character, personality. We're talking about intrinsic value. We're talking about all those spiritual or spirited things, not natural things. Okay? That person is supposed to be like the creator, who created the man, the male, right? So, verse 29, let's read. Elohim said, behold, I have given you every herb yielding seed, which is on the surface of all the earth, every tree which bears fruit yielding seed. See, we're going back all that. It will be your food, right? We don't want to get into the vegetarian thing. We're not gonna touch that yet, okay? We're not gonna go into that, right? To every animal of the earth, and to every bird of the sky, and to everything that creeps on the earth, in which there is life, I have given every green herb for food. And it was so. Okay? So, here it is. God began to create, Genesis 1:1, and continued on the way down. And after he put everything in place, he created an image of himself and put that image of himself to take care of all the things that he himself created, that God created. I didn't create nothing. You didn't create nothing. Okay? He did. That's all we had to do. That's what we had to do. Okay? Let's continue to read. We'll see the narrative. The narrative tells us. God takes him, puts him in the garden. No, let's not jump the gun. Let's go read it. But before we read it, let's look at some references as far as how God created us. We are not created in our image, people. We are created in his image. Okay? We just read that in Genesis 1:27. Genesis 5:1 reads as follows. Genesis 5:1. You could write it down and go back to it for reference, but I'm not going to wait until you get there. I'm just going to kind of read them. Genesis 5:1 says, this is the book of the generations of Adam in the day that God created man or mankind. He, Elohim, made him, Adam, in Elohim's likeness. Okay? That's one. Genesis 9:6. Whoever sheds man's blood, his blood will be shed by man. Right? Whoever sheds human blood, his blood will be shed by human. For Elohim made the human being in his own image. Matthew 19:4. He answered, haven't you read that he who made them from the beginning made them male and female? Going back to the Genesis narrative. 1 Corinthians 11:7. For a man indeed ought not to have his head covered because he, and in this reference, is specifically talking about the male man. Okay? Because if you read that narrative in Corinthians, Paul, in context, he talks about the male and then he talks about the female. Okay? We all know when I say man, I'm not talking about a female. If I'm talking to a male and I say, hey man, what's going on? Obviously, I'm not talking to a female, right? I wouldn't walk up to a female and say, hey man, what's going on? That's not going to be, well, I don't know. But I wouldn't do that. Let's just put it that way. I wouldn't do it. Okay? So, he said, because he is the image and glory of Elohim, but the woman is the glory of the man. Okay, that's okay. We're gonna deal with that. We're gonna deal with that. Calm down, relax. Yes, the woman is the glory of the man. If we go back to the narrative, when we go back there, we will go and we would get into how the woman came to be. Why she is, as Paul is saying here, why he will give her that thing as she is the image, she is the glory of the man. Right? Because she came out of the man. That's where the woman came out of. Right? came out of the man. The man came out of the dirt of the ground, and then the woman was formed from the body of the man, which came from the dirt of the ground. So yes, she was created from the dirt, but in a technical sense, right? When you get down to the real nitty-gritty, she actually came from the body of the man, okay? As the Genesis narrative goes on to explain. Ephesians 4 and 24. What we're looking at is the different narratives, the biblical narratives that talks about the man as the image of God, as the image of Yah, as the image of Elohim. This male. The female too. But hold on, chill out. Ephesians 4 and 24. And put on the new man who in the likeness of Elohim has been created in righteousness and holiness in the righteousness and holiness of truth. So if when you put on the new man, you're going back to that original aspect of creation, where when you were created in righteousness and holiness, in the holiness of truth. That's how you were created. So the Genesis account, depicts those things. Colossians 3 and 10. And I have put on the new man who is being renewed, right? The Genesis account will explain why we have to be renewed, why we have to get the antivirus of the word and get the word to work in us as an antivirus to kill this virus, to kick it off, to get it off of us, so that our hard drive will now be clean, will now be brought back to its original state of righteousness and holiness. Okay? So there we have a few verses where the narrative explicitly talks about the creation of the human being in the image of Elohim. Again, with this, in the image of you is the same way he created you in his image, is the same way you are to procreate in his image. Okay? So, let's go to Genesis 2. I'm going to skip down to Genesis 2, verse 4. This is the history of the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created in the day that Jehovah Elohim made the earth and the heavens. There was no plant. Let's skip through that. Let's read it. No plant of the field was yet in the earth. No herb of the field had yet sprung up. So you could say Genesis 1 and all that is he's speaking his intent. This is my intention. Justin Bieber have a nice little song. I love music. Okay, so don't get bewildered. I love music. I was listening to one of his songs today talking about his only intention. It's my only intention. Okay, so God's intention, he spoke his intention. Okay, in Genesis 1, the narrative, because we know he said, "Let us make man" in 1:26, but he didn't literally create the man in 1:26. Okay, so here's where we're going to go into the narrative of where he literally created the man. Okay. Where am I? I forget. Okay. Verse 6. Genesis 2 and 6. But a mist went up from the earth and watered the whole surface of the ground. And what happens when water falls on the ground? What happens? Give it a little while, a couple of days, a couple of hours. And what happened? We begin to see things begin to sprout. Okay? Things begin to happen. Birth begins to take place. Why? Because the seed of the word of God already went out. And remember, that seed, that word, is not going to return to him void, but is going to accomplish the thing it was sent to accomplish. He spoke to the earth told the earth to bring forth yada, yada, yada. Guess what? The mist came down. The earth is getting ready to bring forth stuff. Okay? Verse 7. Genesis 2 and 7. And Jehovah Elohim formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being or a living soul. This is how it happened. He formed the man from the dust of the ground. Didn't say he spoke to the dust and created a man. He formed the man. Yeah, you could say, well, if he spoke to the dust, but guess what? Guess what? Look at the narratives. Look at the narratives. God spoke to the earth. He said, let the waters, let the earth. Right? Speaking to the creation. The language here it's changed. Jehovah Elohim formed man from the dust of the earth, or the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. This is in nostrils, right? So God, don't know how he did it. Don't know how he did it. I don't know. Really, we don't know. But that's what it says, right? He breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living soul, right? And it goes on to talk about Jehovah planted the garden eastward in Eden, out of the ground. Jehovah made out of the ground, okay? He made every tree to grow, right? He made it because he spoke. He already spoke to the ground. So the ground now is giving up it's producing its fruit according to the word spoken to it. Okay? And so verse 15. Let's move on down to verse 15. I'm getting somewhere. I'm going somewhere. Stay with me. Jehovah Elohim took the man that he created in 7 and put him into the Garden of Eden to cultivate and keep it. Right? That should be simple. To cultivate and keep, right? It's what we do with gardens. What we do with farms, right? You cultivate, you keep your farm up. You keep you keep the soil tilled when you don't have plants and stuff. You keep stuff, right? Let's look at it. Let's look at those two words: cultivate and keep. Right? I said 15, right? The garden. To dress, in KJV it says dress. Let's look at that word dress. The word dress means it says it's abad. Or bad is the phonetic pronunciation. Or bad. Obeyed. Adam. Hey. Right? And that means to work, serve. Interesting. Serve the garden. So you're a servant. To labor, do work, right? Work for another, serve another by labor. To serve as subjects. We talking about a garden with trees and animals and what? I'm just saying. Right? To be worked, to till, to be tilled, to make oneself a servant. Again, I want to reiterate, when you dig into some of these words, do you find these really interesting things that put a lot of other things into perspective, right? Yeshua say, I came to serve. I didn't come to be served. Think about that. Right? So when he came to till the garden. He came to keep it, to dress it. He came to serve, not to be served. Right? I'm just saying, right? If we think about things, if we slow down a little bit read the narrative and just small things. Just take it for a minute. It'll bless your life. It'll bless my life, right? Very interesting, right? Let's go and see what it means to keep, right? In King James, it says dress and keep. What did it say before? I can't remember. Let's go back to the Hebrew Names version and see what it says. It says to cultivate and keep. So dress and cultivate, I guess, the translators tie those two together, and keep, I guess, is on its own. All right, so let's go. Let's see what to keep is. So we see what dress is, right? We see what cultivate is. It's really, really interesting. It talks about servanthood and serving another, working for another. Interesting. So you look at that. The man is put in the garden to serve the garden, which is another. The animals, which could be considered another, and the other is who? The master of the garden, right? What is he called in the gospel account? What is he called? Okay, you know what I'm talking about, right? The person, the owner of the land. Oh boy. Okay, keep. Let's go keep. Keep is Shema. Shema. Does that ring a bell somewhere? If you want, is that the same word as hear Israel? Shema Israel. Jehovah Elohim. Jehovah Echad. Is that the same Shema? I don't, it just, as I'm saying it, I don't know. Should we venture into it? I don't want to go venture into there, right? In that, because it's, I don't want to prolong this. But let's look at it. To keep, Shema, God, observe, give heed. Sounds like the same Shema. That one speaks closer to listen. But if you keeping and guarding and observing and giving heed, all of that is part of listening. Okay? To have charge of. To watch for, to wait for, to observe, to retain, to refrain, to abstain. Oh, it's sweet. So, when you think about it as a human, if you just blank everything out, blank everything you know, okay, and God takes you and puts you in this place, okay, puts you in this place, and he says to you, I want you to cultivate, I want you to serve this place, I want you to give yourself to this place. Don't think about you, I want you to think about this place, I want you to take care of it, I want you to serve it, because in serving it, he's probably not going to tell you that, right? Because he didn't really tell her. He didn't tell the man that, even though somewhere, somehow, I think the man knew that. Well, how you could say that? How you could say that, Maxie? That's not what the narrative didn't say that. But remember how the man was created. If the man is the imprint of God, if he is the memory of God, if he is the hard drive of God, then that information is on the hard drive. It's in there. And I will show you by the narrative how it's in there. But give me a minute. Right? It's in there when it comes to the making of the woman. A couple of verses before, we'll see it's in there. So we think that God has to literally tell us everything. He has to say everything to us. And the truth is, maybe not. There are things that's etched on our hard drive, on our membrane, on his in us because of how we were created. Right? And because of that, there are things we just know, like the famous old question: how does a baby know how does a baby know about lying? How does a baby know about lying? When the baby know he did something wrong, and you say, why you do that? I didn't. Did you do that? No. What? How he know to lie? How does a child know to lie? Where does that come from? How does a child know to tell the truth if he's a child? Right? Without knowing good from evil. How do they know? Right? We did this the teaching about who is Israel. How did these two babies in the womb, they're fighting. Punch. No, I'm going first. No, you going first. No, because I ain't trying to serve you. You go first. You gonna serve me. They're fighting. Obviously, we didn't know that. I'm just making up that story about what they were saying to each other. But the truth is they were actually fighting in the womb. If you read the narrative and if you go back and if you watch the teaching, I'm telling you, that's what they were doing. And God explained to the mom, hey, Rebecca, there's two nations in your womb, two peoples, yada, 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 yada. And the older will serve the younger. But they're fighting in the womb. Babies, not born yet, probably, how old, 7, 8 months? We don't know, right? But think about it. Think about it. How do babies know some of the things they know? Okay. So, that's it. Well, how did he know what to do in the... Guess what? As a matter of fact, wait, no, it's okay. Let's go there. Let's go there. Let's go there. Let's go to Genesis. A little further down. Let's go down. Same chapter, Genesis 2. Let's go to... I think it's hard to skip that, but I'm going to skip that for now. Let's go down to verse 18. Okay? 2 and 18. Listen to this. And Jehovah Elohim said, it is not good for the man to be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him. And out of the ground, we go back again to how these animals were formed. They came out of the ground. Okay? Jehovah Elohim formed every animal of the field, every bird of the sky, and brought them to the man to see what the man would call them. And listen to this last sentence. Whatever the man called them became its name. So, going back to the idea of how does the man know, or how does the baby know, or how do people know things at such infancy, in such infant ages, right? I submitted to you that when Jehovah created mankind, he imprinted himself upon that image, because that's what the word is, zakah. It's a word dealing with memory. So he imprinted memory, he created memory, and then breathed a breath of life into that memory and gave that memory active movement, give it life. So the man knows stuff. He knows a lot of stuff because he is the memory of God. So when God brings the animals to him now, what do you want me to do? Oh, I want to see what you're going to call them. Oh, okay. Lion, tiger, bear, ants, alligator, squirrel, dove, pigeon, turkey, giraffe, hippopotamus. Hippopotamus? That's where you get that word from? Hippopotamus? Really? Rhinoceros? What? That's a long word. Really? Horse, cow, mule, whatever he named them, that was the name. What is that? How did that happen? I submit to you because of Genesis 1:27, Genesis 2:7. The imprint of God is what we're dealing with. So no, God doesn't have to tell us every single thing. Doesn't have to. Right? Doesn't have to. But when we extend ourselves, when we read his word, right, what happens is the virus gets washed away, hopefully. And the more you read it and study and listen to people, listen to teachings, and yeah, they got some wacky ones out there, but you're not dealing with the teaching, you're dealing more with the word. You always bring everything back to the word. You always submit everything to what is written, right? Because the pen is mightier than the sword. Woo! Did you know that? What is written is mightier than what is spoken. Right? But in terms of who God is, what is written is as it's spoken. Because, listen, if he wrote it, he's the same thing he wrote is what he's going to say. Right? But it's just because we have this narrative that has been written by human beings. Right? And we know human beings are flawed. So the narratives, I just pointed out one of the flaws, right? In 1:28 it says multiply and the Hebrew word says fill, but some of the English translations say replenish, which gives a different twist. It gives a different connotations, and there are many places in the word that has these little things. Many places. It's a lot of them in the what people call the New Covenant. A lot of them in there. So that's why we have to familiarize ourselves with this Hebrew mindset, with this Hebrew principle, with this Hebrew concept, with the Hebrew mentality. Cyclical, not linear, not dimensions, not dispensations, but modim, seasons, right? Times and seasons. Okay, cyclically, moon days. Okay, not Monday, moon day. When we have a new moon, a new month, right? Those are cyclical times. Those are Hebraic concepts, not linear. Okay, it came and it ended. No. It doesn't come to pass. It came to pause, to go again, to come back, to pause, to go again. And that's how it is, Just like how the trees grow in wintertime, they shed the chair. Why the tree, if it's cold, I'm going off on a tangent here, right? If it's cold, why would the tree shed its leaves? That's the time the tree should be holding on to the leaves because it's cold, right? Because when it's cold, you go put on more clothes. When it's cold, the trees do the opposite. Think about that. Okay, so getting back to I don't like to go around saying that I want to prove what I'm saying, right? But in essence, I'm proving what I'm saying, right? I'm giving you context in what I'm saying with regards to this imprint, that the man is the imprint, is the carbon copy of Yah. He's the memory, right? And so this is how we know that the man knows stuff. God, nowhere in the narrative we get any idea that God tells the man, gives the man any instructions, right? And this is the part I didn't want to skip, but I skipped it just to show that thing. And let's go back. There is a place where the man got simple instructions, really, really simple. Watch, 2 verses, 3 verses, maybe. We're going back to verse 15. God took the man, put him in the garden to what? To serve it. God said, go serve the garden. Serve the needs of the garden and the animals of the garden. And when you serve in that, when you operate as a servant, you are going to please the master because you're taking care of what the master created. Remember, this man did nothing. He didn't create a thing. As a matter of fact, that's how good God is. He made every single thing for the man. The man didn't have to make anything. Didn't have to make food. None of that. Everything was there. Talk about being born with a gold spoon in your mouth. Talk about being born with a gold spoon in your mouth. You get everything on a silver platter, bro. Everything. And put him in the garden to cultivate, to serve the garden, and to keep the garden, to protect it, and do everything that he needs to do. He didn't tell him how to do that. He didn't give him any, okay, in order to serve the garden, I want you to do this. No, none of that came in here. Well, why? Because he knows. He just knows, because the imprint of God is on him. Let's read verse 16. Verse 16 says, and Jehovah commanded the man, saying, you may freely eat of every tree of the garden. Everything is yours. Except you shall not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Interestingly, as I read this, Jehovah didn't seemingly point out this particular tree to the man. Didn't seem to say, that tree over there, the one over there, you will not eat from that. But he did say, you shall not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. For in the day that you eat of it, you will surely die. Now, did the man know where the tree? Did the man know anything about that tree? I would say that that line, that reading this passage, it infers that this man know about that tree. Okay? Think about it. You may eat of every tree, because he said that. How many times he said? But then give him dominion over everything. Right? And then he said, the tree, the grass, the herb, berries, that's all for your food. Everything, all of that stuff is for you to eat. It's all for your food. And here now he gets kind of specific, if you will, and says, you may freely eat from every tree of the garden, but you shall not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, For in the day that you eat of it, you will surely die. I am beginning to see that the man had some knowledge about this tree. Ergo, why the instruction? If I don't know something about something, then you would be more specific. Right? That's I would think that if I don't want my son to do something, I will be very specific in what I don't want him to do. Now, if I think he has an idea of what I'm talking about, then I could be more broad or more vague in terms of the lack of specificity. I said that come out pretty smooth there, right? So this man had some knowledge about the tree of the knowledge and good and evil, as far as maybe where it was and those things. So he eat everything else except from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. He's specific in which tree he's talking about, which again, I'm saying that the man got to have some idea. The more I think about it, is the more I'm being convinced that this man seemingly had some ideas about this tree. Okay? Then is when, we go back to this idea. This man is getting everything given to him. Everything. He's already had a download of all of what is required of him from any perspective, really. And here he's put in the garden, and now he's given, okay, I want you to don't eat from this particular tree, which I'm sure he was aware of. All right? You could eat everything else except from this tree, because in the day you eat of it, you will surely die. Interesting words. Because we know in the narrative, he didn't really die, like physically die, right? And so when you think about that, you think of, well, this surely fit there. Who knows? But we'll leave it at that, because we don't really want to veer too much off at this time. Okay? We want to stick more with the narrative. So he's saying, but the point I'm making is that the man has been given everything, and he seems to have the knowledge of everything, and he's given everything, including, and at this appointed time, including the other half of what is necessary to begin this procreative aspect of his life, of their life. And look who came up with the idea. It wasn't the man. The man wasn't in the garden thinking, oh man, I ain't got no girl. Man, I'm so lonely up in here. I'm all by myself. I need me a girl. I need me a woman. I need me somebody. I need somebody to love. I need somebody to love. Happy feet. Queen. I need somebody to love. I need somebody to love. That wasn't his thought. That was not his thought. No. Look who said it. Verse 18. And Jehovah said, it is not good. It is not good, sir. It is not good, young man. No. It is not good for the man or for the male. See, if I was writing this, everywhere I about the man, I would put male. That's how this should have been written. Really. Because when you use man, you get that. Is he talking about both of them or just one? Or, you know what I'm saying? In this instance, in the instances we were talking about before, in terms of the man, we was talking about the male, because he made the male from Genesis 2:7 is the male that was created, and he took the male and put the male. So that's how I would write it. Sorry, Mr. KJV. You follow what I'm saying? He said it is not good for the male to be alone. Or, interestingly enough, you could leave that word man there, because it's also not good for a woman to be alone. Right? Well, are you saying that, Keith? Did Paul say in Corinthians that I wish all people was like me? Yeah, from the perspective where you're not thinking about reproduction, that's not in your heart, which is in your heart, really. Because no matter what you think about it or how you look at it, that's part of your DNA. That's part of the imprint that God put on you, because that's part of why he brought you here. I'm not saying that's the only reason he brought us here. But we have to dress and keep the garden, keep this world, keep this universe. We have to make sure and take care of it. Right? I'm not talking climate control. No, I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about there are a lot of reasons why we are here. So stop second guessing. Why am I here? What is my purpose? No, if you search, if you get with him, you will find purpose. It's not hard. It's not hard to find. So yeah, maybe I would probably leave that there, as a matter of fact. Sounds kind of good when you think about it, right? Because if you're thinking about the procreation of other godly mankind, other godly humans, you need a man and a woman. You need a man and a woman. 2 women can't do it. Sorry. My bad. 2 guys can't do it. Sorry. You need a man and a woman. Okay? No, it's no ifs, ands, buts, or maybes about it. It's impossible to do it any other way. Okay? Even if you say, well, you still have to take what the man has. You still have to take the seed of the man and put it in the egg of a woman. You still need a man and a woman. So, like my bishop used to say, don't look at me with that tone of voice. You still need male and female. So, but look at who's the one who made that comment. Look at who's the one who made the statement. It is not good for mankind to be alone. In this case, he's speaking about the male. Okay, in this case, right? But like I said, as a general on a general platform, you could say it's not good for the human being to be alone, right? Because that's not how we created. We were created to be community, to be commune, to serve each other, to be there for each other, right? To help each other. That's part of why we're here. I got to look after you. You got to look after me. That's why it's innate. It's imprinted. Okay? What is man that you think of him? And if he cares for us, then we ought to care for each other. Whoa. Isn't that something like one of the commandments? Ooh. Love one another as I have loved you. And you shall love each other. Love the Lord your God first, and then love your neighbor as you love yourself. Isn't that so you understand what I'm saying? I'm not making anything up. I'm just trying to put it to you nicely. But look at who's the one making the intonation. Look at who's the one who is making the comment, making the statement. It is not good for a man to be alone. And the Lord, verse 21 says, and the Lord God called the man to fall into a deep sleep. And as the man slept, he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in its place. Verse 22, and Jehovah Elohim made a woman from the rib which he had taken from the man and brought her to the man. And the man said, verse 23, this is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. So she will be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Who gave him the right to call her? Who told him he could tell her who she is? Ooh, this is, listen, people. I want to close here, right? I want to close here because in part 4, this is third part? Part 4, I want to pick up right here because there's a lot to get into in those last few verses that I just read. A lot. So I want to close off here on this so that I could pick back up right here and dig into this again, because we are ultimately going to come to the conclusion of what is man and why we are here and what purpose do we serve and why God wants things a certain way. Why he doesn't want a woman to dress like a man or a man to dress like a woman. You know, a man shall not wear that pertaineth to a woman, and a woman is not supposed to wear that pertaineth to a man. We'll get into those things. Hold your horses. Don't get pissed off. Don't get upset. We will get into those things on the next go around. Okay? But for now, I want to bring this to a close. I want to wind this down by saying to you, male, you are a male. By design. You did not choose who you were going to be born to become in terms of male and female, right? And lady, young lady, female, likewise for you. You did not choose who or which side you was going to be on. Am I going to be a male? God, I want to be a female. Can I be a female? You didn't have any choice. So don't be upset at your choice. Find out why the chooser, the person who chose you to be that entity, that female or that male, find out why did that person choose you to be that person. Why? Seeing that the choice wasn't yours, I challenge you to go to him whose choice it was and ask the question. That's the only way you could get the answer. Go to him and find out. Hey, Yah, Elohim, why did you choose me to be male? Why did you choose me to be female? And I pretty much guarantee you, he will answer. He will oblige you. Why? Because he wants you to know. He wants it to be registered in your mind and to be comfortable in your heart. Okay, I could breathe now. I'm good. I know why I am, who I am. And you know what? I don't need anybody to tell me. I don't need to go ask nobody. I know I could just flow in who I am. And I'll leave you with this little tidbit. That same thing, that same little experience happened to me. Right? That same little experience. And it didn't happen to me as a little boy. It happened to me in my 30s. Maybe even my 40s, I think. That's when it actually happened to me. So picture a 40-year-old person now finding out, all of this stuff here. Yeah. Picture that. And I'll leave you with that. And what I like to do as I close any teaching, any lesson, is close with Numbers chapter 6, starting at verse 22. So if you will go there with me, let's go and read that. It's called the Aaronic Blessing. It's awesome, powerful words. Okay, it is important that you familiarize yourself with things like this. Okay, these are Hebraic things. These are Hebraic concepts, Hebraic principles. Okay, these are things that you ought to know. Why does God want his name or his character or his personality to be upon you or upon me? Why is Aaron and his sons given this instruction? And we find out when we read the last verse. So, join me as I read Numbers chapter 6, verse 22 in closing. Jehovah spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the, okay, I almost going to say children of Israel. Speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, this is how you shall bless the children of Israel. You shall tell them, Jehovah bless you and keep you. Jehovah make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Jehovah lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. So they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. Shalom. Until next time. Peace.